Thank you, Celia, for being here today. I'm so glad there's more of that later this afternoon. And we do promise that you'll be home for the kickoff, even if you stay for the concert. So don't worry about those Broncos or who else is doing their thing. Sorry. I promise. You'll be home in time for kickoff. Well, I'm Rev Bonnie, the community spiritual leader here at the center, and it is always my privilege to start us off each month with our topic. And what a fun topic love is. It is all there is. So has anyone ever experienced falling in love? Yes? A few times? At least once? How does that feel? What does falling in love feel like when it happens? Great, yummy, wonderful, blissful. You feel joy, enlivened, on top of the world. Yeah. So can we fall in love with love? And if we can, how? What does that take? What do we do in order to do that? I'm sure you've heard it said that God is love. And you've already heard this morning that God is all there is. So if we fall in love with love, we're falling in love with God. And we're falling in love with all that is. Everything around us. So can you picture that? Can you imagine what that would feel like to have that same feeling that you have when you're in love for everything and everyone around you? This morning I am taking a lot of my readings from this book called Love Poems from God. And the reason that I chose to do this, I hear myself coming on and off a little bit here, is that when I first picked up this book and read it, I found it interesting to hear people writing love poems to God and experiencing their poems coming through as love poems from God. Because I personally had never really had that experience. And I thought, what an interesting concept. So for me this week of really contemplating this, actually it's been about a month that I've been contemplating these poems and this idea, has been really interesting. And I tell you what, it fills you with joy. Just to have those ideas, just to think about it and to listen to these words. So this is Meicar Eckhart. He was a Catholic monk in Germany in the years from the 200s to the 1200s to the 1300s. It is our destiny to see as God sees, to know as God knows, to feel as God feels. How is this possible? How? Because divine love cannot defy itself. Divine love will be eternally true to its own being, and its being is giving all it can at the perfect moment. And the greatest gift God can give its own experience. Every object, every creature, every man, woman, and child has a soul, and it is its destiny to see as God sees, to know as God knows, to feel as God feels, to be as God is. So again, can you just imagine that experience moving in and through us? So what happens when we fall in love? What's usually going on as we're in that experience? What I know about it is you tend to see only the good in the person or the object of your love, right? Usually you just, even those little quirky things, they're just so cute, aren't they? You just love it. You just think, aren't those amazing things that they're doing? The good always far outweighs the bad, if there is any bad that you even see during that time, when you're in that state of feeling in love. And so many of the mystics say that in their experience, they experience God as being in love with them as well as them being in love with God. Another one of the authors in here is Hafiz, who wrote in the 1300s, "Know the true nature of your beloved. In his loving eyes, your every thought, word, and movement is always always beautiful. That's that state of being in love. Everything that the person does, every thought, every word, every movement is always beautiful. So the mystics, that's what we refer to these people as. The mystics have had this experience, and they say they feel this love moving back and forth between them, the God within, as well as the God all around. And yet I think for us as religious scientists, that concept might be a little strange, a little odd. It's not something we often talk about. We've spent a lot of time, and especially this last month in January, where we're looking at how we change our thinking to bring about changes in our life. And one of those changes in our thinking for many of us was our perception of God. From something out there, whatever we used to think of it as, to something in here. And often we change the pronoun that we use in relation to God, especially when we start taking classes. So we use it as opposed to he or she to take away the gender from this concept of God and to not over-anthropomorphize God. And so as we do that, we study and we study and we study. And in the religious science movement, the study groups turn into teaching chapters, so we're still studying. And teaching chapters become centers where we still offer classes and we still have lots of discussions and we keep studying this concept and talking about this concept of what is God, how does it move in and through our lives. And yet Ernest Holmes was not devoid of passion. He talked about it's all love and law. And that's why I asked Barbara to read to you from The Voice Celestial. I don't know if you realize that he wrote this near the end of his life in the 1960s, and the whole book is a poem. And it's a discussion between a person who's traveling and the presence, and then somebody who's sort of the chorus, who does the general talk. It's very interesting to read through it. There's a whole chapter in here on love. I didn't think you'd want me to read the whole thing, but I suggest if you're interested in seeing how Holmes came around to having a more poetic view of this experience, that's an interesting book to read. And it was in there that he said that your celestial lover. What a concept, to think of God, capitalized celestial lover, that we have that in our life and we can have that experience. So I think that if we get too heady, if we spend too much time just studying, discussing, contemplating all of this, and we forget the passion and the love, we've lost part of what this teaching is about. We've lost part of the experience of this teaching. Ernest Holmes also wrote a book called Can We Talk to God? And I think the title of that comes from that idea that many people, as they started shifting their thinking of God and moving out of applying a gender to God, started to say, well, we don't talk to God out here because God is in here. And yet what Holmes is saying is that the God out there is the God in here. It's all one. And yes, we can talk to God. So what would that look like? As we have a conversation with the God within as well as the God out there. And the mystics who wrote in here and others that I have read were aware of that. They weren't just talking to a God out there. They were talking also to that God that resided within them, to that essence. And one of the poems that I'll read to you later, the myself is capitalized as the God within. Cabrir is another one who wrote several poems in here to God. And this is what he said about those poems. There is dew on these poems in the morning, and at night a cool breeze may rise from them. In the winter, they are blankets. In the summer, a place to swim. I like talking to you like this. Have you moved a step closer? Soon we may be kissing. That's Cabrir's conversation with God. And so Holmes, along with a lot of these mystic writers and experiencers, because it's not about just writing, it's that experience that's coming through in the form of writing, they know and they recognize that you have this experience of the beloved alone. You can have it in those quiet moments when you are just with yourself, but you also have them as you interact with others, because God is the all. God is expressing in and through all. And so we have those experiences also when we're out in the world, in nature, or with other people. This is a poem written by Saint Teresa of Avila, which is in Spain. And again, she's writing in the 1500s, so it's a while back. And this is how she was experiencing God. God desired me, so I came close. No one can near God unless he has prepared a bed for you. 1,000 souls hear God's call every second, but most every one of them looks into their life's mirror and says, I'm not worthy to leave this sadness. When I first heard God's courting call, I too looked at all I had done in my life and said, how can I gaze into these omnipresent eyes? I spoke these words with all my heart. But then he sang again, a song even sweeter. And when I tried to shame myself once more from his presence, God showed me his compassion and spoke a divine truth. I made you, dear, and I make all in perfection. Please come close, for I desire you. And this one is written, let me find it here, by Hafiz, who wrote in the 1300s. He was Persian and had studied the Quran. And part of why I want to share these is because not all of these writers are coming out of a Christian tradition. And I want you to realize that this feeling of mysticism, this feeling of connection with God, comes through all experiences, and from men and women. And in this poem, this is the expression of seeing God in someone else. Hafiz is talking to someone he calls a pilgrim or a wayfarer. And so to me, that means he's talking to someone who is just passing through, not necessarily someone he's spending a lot of time with. So I think it's interesting if you listen to these words that they're being applied to just someone passing through his life. Because the woman I love lives in you. And woman is capitalized. Because the woman I love lives inside of you, I lean as close to your body with my words as I can. And I think of you all the time, dear pilgrim. Because the one I love goes with you wherever you go, Hafiz will always be near. If you sat before me, wayfarer, with your aura bright from many charms, my lips could resist rushing to you. But my eyes can no longer hide the wondrous fact of who you really are. The beautiful one, whom I adore, has pitched her royal tent inside of you. So I will always lean my heart as close to your soul as I can. Isn't that beautiful? And then remember in The Voice Celestial that Ernest Holmes said, and so does the cosmic lover give himself to his creation. And one of the things I realized is that in our language, we can't really read it and have it have that personal feeling without applying a pronoun. So just convert it to whatever works for you. Some of these people were speaking to man as seeing God as him or his, and then in this one he was seeing the supreme being as the woman. So whatever works for you, just do the work. So hopefully you're becoming a little more comfortable, or at least opening a little bit to this idea of experiencing the cosmic lover, as seeing God or that essence within us and all around us as something you can have a sense of falling in love with. Usually when we fall in love, there's some mutuality there, hopefully. There's an exchange of feeling between you and another person or you and another being. I know I felt like I fell in love with my son when he was born. And I know some people fall in love with their animals. There's that feeling of just total devotion. And it's usually reciprocated. And so what these writers are saying, what Ernest Holmes is saying, is that God is already in love with us. God already sees our perfection. Is the feeling mutual? Is there that exchange? So I want to try something a little different. I'm going to ask you to just spend a little time within. I'm going to read a few more of these poems, but this time, as you go within, imagine, if you can, yourself in the writer's place of having this experience. How does it feel to be saying these words that this writer has written? And see if you can bring yourself to that place, and just imagine expanding yourself to having these experiences. This first one is by St. Thomas Aquinas, again in 1200s. "Ask anything, my Lord said to me, and my mind and heart thought deeply for a second, then replied with just one word, 'When?' God's arms then opened up and I entered myself. I entered myself when I entered Christ. And having learned compassion, I allowed my soul to stay." Now, as you stay in that place, I want to take us back through this one with a little bit of a metaphysical interpretation. One of the things we can do when we hear the term "my Lord" in any Christian-related context is change that out to the law, as Ernest Holmes taught it. And then, of course, that works for us. "Ask anything," the law said to me. Isn't that true? "And my mind and heart thought deeply for a second, and then replied with just one word, 'When?' God's arms then opened up and I entered myself." And this is where the myself is capitalized. I entered myself when I entered Christ, and we would refer to that as the Christ consciousness. "And having learned compassion, I allowed my soul to stay." So just take a nice deep breath, taking in the love and releasing. And here's another one by Meister Eckhart. "They were always kissing. They can't control themselves. It is not possible that any creature can have greater instincts and perceptions than the mature human mind. God ripened me, so I see it is true. All objects in existence are wildly in love." So again, just take that one in. Nice deep breath and release. Another one from Hafiz. "Our union is like this. You feel cold, so I reach for a blanket to cover our shivering feet. A hunger comes into your body, so I run to my garden and start digging potatoes. You asked for a few words of comfort and guidance, and I quickly kneel by your side, offering you a whole book as a gift. You ache with loneliness one night, so much you weep, and I say, 'Here is a rope, tie it around me. Hafiz will be your companion for life.'" So just breathe that in. And this one by St. Catherine of Siena from Italy. "I won't take no for an answer," God began to say to me when he opened his arms each night, wanting us to dance. And then remember the end of the part that we read this morning of Ernest Holmes. "Love is a sea of cosmic consciousness upon whose surface ride the swaying waves, and each breaks in foam. It takes the form of a woman or of man whose streaming hair flows backward in the sea, whose eyes look out to other eyes across a narrow space, whose voice cries out in liquid melody, 'I love you, and I long for your embrace.'" So again, just breathe in that love and let it out. And allow yourself to bring your awareness back into this space. It's a little different experience, isn't it, to think of God as that cosmic lover. So as we know, then, within relationships, to maintain the feeling of being in love, all relationships need nurturing and they need attention. And years ago, I went to a workshop on relationships where the woman giving the workshop said that all relationships thrive on what she called the novel and the navel. The novel being the new and the exciting, something different, and the navel being that sort of birth connection, that place where you feel the comfort and safety and sort of hominess, familiarity, routine, and all relationships need both. And so as we explore this idea of having a relationship, falling in love with God, how is it then that we have the navel in our relationship with God? Do you have a regular time that you meet up with God consciously? Is there a regular time that you spend in meditation or prayer, conversing maybe through journaling? Is there a way that you find comfort in that? Is there any books that you might read that bring you that comfort, that sense of familiarity or connection with God as you understand that relationship to be? How have you gotten comfortable in that space? Maybe coming here on Sunday mornings is a way to experience that when you connect with other people and see the God in everyone that you're experiencing here. And maybe it's the way you picture God. We've become familiar sometimes with certain terms that we use. So if God isn't one that's comfortable, whether it's spirit, higher power, mother, father, whatever term you're comfortable with, I thought of that as kind of like the little nicknames that we have for people in our family. What's your nickname for God? How do you relate to that? And where are you comfortable? What are you comfortable referring to God as? And then, how do you bring the novel into that relationship? How do you bring in the new, the exciting? If you consider that you're having a love affair with that cosmic lover, how do we keep it vibrant? One of the other authors in here, Tukaram, said, "I might act serious if God would stop telling jokes." That's for Edie. So how serious do you believe your relationship with God has to be? Or can it be fun and joyous? Can there be something different and uplifting? So take a moment just to consider, how can you bring the novel, something new and exciting, into that relationship? If you have a regular way or place that you spend time, maybe every morning, every night, maybe shift that around. If you're used to sitting to meditate, take a walk. Go out with the specific intention of seeing God in everything that you see when you take that walk. If you're comfortable with like-minded people, find a way to interact with people from different traditions and find that connection. See the God in them, even if they're different. Dance. Mirabai, I think is how you say her name, was a renowned woman poet and saint in India. And she wrote, "I can't forget about love for more than 2 seconds. I get dizzy if I think about anything but the way you pant in my ear." So consider seeing that love and experiencing that love. And I feel, but then this is probably because I'm sharing where I need some additional novelness, is playfulness. I tend to be very serious a lot of the time. So for me, bringing in that playful concept of interacting, whether it's with God in me out there or with me and other people, that is a new way of being in the world. So I say, come and color with us. You don't need to be artistic. Just come and play when we do our coloring night. Come and crochet. Come enjoy concerts and music. And then go listen to music that's different, that you've never listened to before. That's another way of experiencing God and creativity. Come play games with us. Come laugh with us. Come to laughing yoga and just experience something different. Take yourself out of your comfort zone, whatever that might be, to get into that novel, new, and exciting. And then I saw something on Facebook that I thought was a fabulous thing to think about and possibly do, and that is to let everyone you meet know in some way or another that you see the beauty in them. That's a way of saying you see the God in them. This young girl had taken a video in her high school, and she would go up to people as she started videoing, and she said, "I am taking pictures of things that I think are beautiful." And the person who she was filming started off looking quite serious. And as soon as she said that, they just beamed and the beauty came out. And she did this with all different kinds of looking students within her high school. And so the beauty just emerged the minute she said, I'm taking pictures of things that I see are beautiful. And so I thought, well, we could at least let people know in some way, maybe saying, I see the beauty in you, no matter what's coming through, and watch it just emerge. And that, for me, would be a new way of being with others as I'm falling in love with the God within. And finally, I am asking the question throughout this entire year, does falling in love with God or all, help to create a world that works for everyone, or is it just about making me feel better? I personally think that it does help to create a world that works for everyone. In the end of Ernest Holmes' Can We Talk to God, he says, love overcomes both hate and fear. And so as we imagine seeing the beloved in all that we meet and feeling that feeling of being in love, all we're going to see is the good. All those little quirky things become so cute. We can just embrace them. We can hold them in that space of seeing them in that light. And so I want to close with two more of the poems from in here, because I think Rumi says it really well. I'm sure most of you are familiar with him as an Islamic poet. Rumi says, if you put your hands on this oar with me, they will never harm another, and they will come to find they hold everything you want. If you put your hands on this oar with me, they will no longer lift anything to your mouth that might wound your precious land, that sacred earth that is your body. If you put your soul against this oar with mine, the power that made the universe will enter your sinew from a source not outside your limbs, but from a holy realm that lives in us. Exuberant in existence, time a husk. When the moment cracks open, ecstasy leaps out and devours space. Love goes mad with the blessings like my words give. Why lay yourself on the torturer's rack of the past and future? The mind that tries to shape tomorrow beyond its capacities will find no rest. Be kind to yourself, dear. To our innocent foils, forget any sounds or touch you knew that did not help you dance. You will come to see that all evolves us. If you put your heart against the earth with me in serving every creature, our beloved will enter from our sacred realm, and we will be so happy. And on a lighter note, this is Tukaram again. I couldn't lie anymore, so I started to call my dog God. First he looked confused. Then he started smiling. Then he even danced. I kept at it. Now he doesn't even bite. I am wondering if this might work on people. And so I think it does work on people. As we see the God in everyone, as we fall in love, with that love expressed in and through ourselves and through everyone, it works. And so it is.